Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches,
urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
Hi, I've got a prescription for diabetes test strips. How much is the copay?
That could take me a while to calculate. In the meantime, you should think about over-the-counter Contour Next test strips. You get 35 for $19.99, and they're highly accurate. For full details, visit contournext.com/radio.
Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. So, over a year ago, I created something called the 7-Day HA Recovery Commitment Challenge, and I've been running it for over a year. It was this free email-based challenge, so lots of reading, but you would get an email every day for 7 days to help you overcome and tackle the different but important areas that you need to be checking off in order to get your period back. Now, over time, I have collected some really great feedback, and upon working with all of these wonderful, amazing women, really started to learn even more about what works and what doesn't. And so I'm excited to be introducing to you guys the updated version. It's called the 7-Day HA Recovery Kickoff, and it is totally designed to help you not just commit to the process and have all of your ducks in a row in terms of important factors that need to be tackled and issues that need to be overcome in order to get your period, but the whole thing is now based in video. So you can listen/watch, and every day for 7 days, we will tackle nutrition. There's actually 2 days of that because it's so big. We'll tackle lifestyle, we'll tackle exercise, your support network, your mindset game. Each video goes from anywhere between 12 minutes and 5 minutes, so it's not very long, but you'll get all of the most important areas and the best tips and strategies for how to implement them. Because I know that going through recovery is hard. There's always an area for each person that is a little bit difficult to execute on. And so the goal, or maybe a lot difficult. So the goal of this challenge is to help you have the awareness, the self-awareness, and the tools and strategies you need to overcome each of the different issues that AHA recovery faces for us. So get on it. It's great if you're at the very beginning of recovery or if you're halfway through. I mean, we never know how far through we are until it's over, do we? But no matter where you're at, it can be a really good opportunity to check in and look for blind spots and areas where you might be dropping the ball in your nutrition, in your lifestyle, in, maybe it's your support network that's a problem, maybe exercise is something that you are still struggling with making changes to. So check it out. Go to thehasociety.com/7-day-challenge, or the link will be on the website. So it may be in the show notes of this show. It may not be. Just go to thehasociety.com and you'll find it in the footer, or you'll find it in the pop-up that happens when you visit the page. And we will see you for day 1 of the challenge. Oh, it's over here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the HA podcast. I'm very excited about today's episode, and I know I probably say that all the time, but it's especially true because this is one that's been a long time that we've been waiting, right? We've been waiting to have this person on the show and tell her story. I'm just so excited. That's all I can really say about it. Well, welcome, Elisabeth.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I feel like I've known you now for 2 years or something.
Yes.
And your story begins much, much before that. So I would love for you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and kind of where all this started, and just tell the listeners what happened with you.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. So I'm Elisabeth. I'm from Austria. I'm currently 38 years old. My HA story started over 15 years ago. So when I graduated from school, I had a couple of illnesses. I had to take antibiotics for a while, and that all triggered my gut to go haywire. So I had a lot of gut issues. And those caused panic attacks, which caused trouble with food. So it initially started very innocent with just panic attacks from eating. And that's how I spiraled into an eating disorder without even knowing that. And that went on for a while until I found out what I could and couldn't eat. It's been probably around 10 years where I just lived with it without thinking anything about it. Doctors told me it's fine if you don't want children right now. We can do something eventually when you get there. I did have one random period in between while I was traveling. I was living in the States. I was leading a happy life. I didn't care much about what I was doing. So I didn't connect the dots back then. So I just figured, okay, I'm able to have a period. If anything, I even thought, oh, something's wrong because there's a period. So yeah, and back then it wasn't really important. It was out of focus. Then I met my boyfriend, now husband. And then when a baby becomes relevant and you realize, okay, I'm not really fertile, and you're in a fitness routine, you're in a diet routine, and then all of a sudden you realize, okay, is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? And that's when I started to look into first bone health recovery, and then I found out about HA, and then I tackled HA recovery.
Okay. So how did you find out about HA? What was the triggering event there?
So I started with a Facebook group about bone health, and then I found out about secondary amenorrhea, female athlete triad. Then I joined an HA group where I found a person who she has the same background story as I do, and she was a marathon runner, recently had a baby, so I thought it worked for her, so maybe I can do what she does. And we just did one discovery call to figure out if we were a match. And only from this, I think it was a 15 or 20-minute call. Just from this call alone, I realized what I need to do. So that opened my eyes exactly to what was going on. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do anything that it takes to get my period back and to recover, which looks differently for everyone, as we know. And I tried everything possible without having to gain weight, because this is something that we all don't want to do at the beginning. That's how I got started, and it went on for a while. So I tried doing a little bit less working out. I didn't start eating more at the beginning because I figured if I just skip a workout a week, it's going to be fine, which is obviously not the truth, at least not for many of us. And I listened to all the podcasts out there. This is how I found you. And I think after like half a year or so, I realized, okay, this is not working. I need to do something more. I need some support. I need a surrounding that supports me, because my friends and family weren't really that supportive, because who understands that you need support if you tell them, I need to work out less and I need to eat more? Everyone says, I wish.
Yeah,
But
like how do you even support someone doing that? Like
exactly. And then you also, there's the people who don't understand, and then there's those people who feel like, one friend even said, you don't have to gain weight, you're fine, you look fine.
I feel like I remember that. That was like a big one for you.
And then I had gained, that was in the beginning, I only had gained 5 pounds, and she just said, without me addressing the issue, she said, I think it's enough now, you don't have to gain more weight. And she kept calling.
I remember that. And that was like early last year or the year before.
Yeah,
it's a long time ago.
She's no longer my friend now, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah. No, that was really hard. She kept calling me to go on bike rides with her and to go running. So yeah, wasn't really successful. So yeah, then my husband wanted to support me, but he just didn't know how. So his support was being there when I needed him, but not pushing me in any direction. Because he said, I asked him later on why he wasn't more supportive and pushing me to just sit down and eat more and not go for a walk. And he said, I knew that you would do your thing. And I also knew that telling you what to do would make you mad and angry and probably go into the other direction. So that's why he just left it up to me, which I now really appreciate. But at the beginning, I thought, he doesn't want me to gain weight. He doesn't want me to lose my abs and stuff. So yeah. And that's why I finally decided to join the HA Society and get the support I need from people that are in the same situation and that I can vent with when I don't want to bother the people around me, which is basically what it is. You can take the pressure off the people around you in your real life, and you have I call it parallel life, where you have your people around you.
Yeah, it's definitely a separate world. That's why
definitely.
it's a community of people who get it. And this is a great sort of place to stop and focus a little on what you were just saying, right? So you found a place to sort of relate on things that were hard for you. And you mentioned some of those things that were hard for you, which was like getting your husband to like fully understand how to support you, dealing with just like being around people and friends and certain triggering events. And so I do remember, I feel like the version of you today is very different to the one when we first met. So we would have the community calls, and, it's a great opportunity for people to come up and be like, hey, this happened recently and it was hard for me. And early on, I remember some of them for you, which I'm happy to jog your memory if you want, but maybe you remember. But you were always really good at kind of sharing things that are going on. And that was helpful because other people could relate to those too. So at the time, we're physically making the changes that you were hesitant to make were hard around that time. What were some of those challenges? And I'm curious a little more about your husband and how that evolved, if at all, along the way as well.
Yeah, so the hardest thing for me was wrapping my head around the fact that I needed to gain weight, because I was very, very attached to a certain body shape. Also because I did ballet for 25 years, which like brands in your brain. And then very stupid, I was attached to my wardrobe, and I could not imagine buying new things and growing out of things. That was really hard. And another very hard thing for me was stopping to measure my food intake, calculate every calorie I put into my mouth, and also reducing exercise. And for me, it always was, and it kind of still is, I need numbers and plans for everything. So I cannot just say like, okay, I'm going to do this as of tomorrow. I need to make a plan and be like, okay, as of tomorrow, I'm only going to do yoga 3 times a week. because this is something I stick to. So I had to make short-term goals that are really measurable. We all know those stupid SMART goals, but I needed to have measurable goals written down where I could focus on. Because then I had this rewarding feeling of sticking to a plan and checking off a box when I passed another week of only 3 yoga workouts. So, or eating a certain amount of food. And as hard as it was in the beginning, I started to enjoying the little treats that I never allowed myself to have before. So I would wake up in the morning, of course, knowing that this is not going to be forever, because I was at the same time very concerned about my health, which I'm going to come back to later. But I woke up and had a treat, Christmas treats or Easter treats or whatever time it was. And I woke up, and without feeling any guilt or feeling bad about it, I just had caramel chocolate bars at 6 a.m. in the morning, because I knew, okay, if I want to do a stretching session or if I want to do yoga, I need to do this, or chocolate chip cookies or whatever. So, and it was little by little, I discovered the joys of being a normal person, like having this treat, or just instead of doing this workout, sitting down and watching this movie or that TV show, or instead of working on my abs and my glutes at night, going out for drinks or a movie with friends. So it was like rediscovering life. And what another major thing was going out in restaurants. Because before that, a lot of us do check menus before, see if there's anything safe we can have, where we can roughly estimate the calories that we are taking in. And I remember the first few times I was a little scared, but then I started enjoying things at restaurants, and I was looking around at other people smiling, happy in my plate then. And I thought, why are they not happier about the fact that they can sit here and enjoy this?
Why are you guys, how do you not see how special this is?
Yeah. I remember having my first ice cream. I don't know if you have Magnum ice cream in the States.
We do. Well, we have it in Australia for sure. I don't know about the States.
And there's like this double caramel white chocolate stuff. And I remember biting into this ice cream and I almost cried because it was so good. And I thought, instead of being remorseful that I did this to my body, I was happy about the fact that I could do this, like explore all the things for a second time. So I was sitting there at the restaurant smiling because I'm eating this and I'm eating that. And I was like, yeah, this is like discovering life new.
Yeah. And how did your husband experience that too? Because I bet, I think it's always a big deal for them when we eat more. He was
super happy about it because eating out for him, or food in general, I think in Austria, it's a very big deal. Like we are very food focused, and he loves eating out or cooking at home. And he was really happy that we could finally share food and that I would try something off his plate, which I never did before. And that was a big deal. And he said, I really enjoy eating out with you because now you don't just order one meal, one dish, but more, and we can actually share and you try what I order. And then, yeah, the thing, that was the last time I actually thought about what he thinks about all of this, was when he said that, I don't know how much weight I had gained, but he said he likes me more now than ever before. Because I was curvier, I didn't have that like bony structure. And then I said, why didn't you tell me this before? I would have gained weight so much sooner. Yeah, but that goes to show that you shouldn't be projecting things on other people without knowing where they come from.
Yeah, because that was a big thing for you, was like what other people think, right? Yeah. Including your partner, like what other people going to think. But you didn't ask them, like you have no idea. Yeah, we're just inventing it. And I wonder how many people listening are using it as a crutch or genuinely believing that people will love them less. And it's just false. And you could start by asking.
Yeah, I actually asked one person. It was one of my closest male friends, and back in the days, friend with benefits. And I thought, okay, I can ask him anything. I just want to know, because I had 50 pounds more back then when this stuff was going on. And I called him and I said, okay, I'm going through something now, and this question might be weird, but what did you like about me back then? What made you attracted to me? But he didn't get it. And he said something, I forgot what he really said, but it was something completely not what I wanted him to say, what I expected, that showed me that he didn't really know what I intended with the question. So I figured, okay, this is too complicated for people. So I just stopped asking.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Also a tough question. I mean, what do you say to this?
Yeah, like we absolutely have to have compassion for like how this is coming across to other people, and understanding too, like, this is our life and our world, and this is just what's happening for us. And this is a time to concentrate on yourself.
Exactly. We get very focused about thinking about every possible situation that could happen when you interact with other people. But in reality, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody realizes if you have 5 pounds or 10 pounds more or less, unless it's a person that sees you naked every day, and probably they don't even really do. But we get so focused on everything because we focus on it, and therefore we think everyone else's focus is on there. It's like having a spot on your shirt. You go out with a spot on your shirt and you feel like everyone's going to look at this. And I look like a pig because I just, there's something.
Yeah. I mean, it's systemic, right?
Yeah.
So I actually watched this terrible movie, but I just know that a lot of people listening have seen it too. It's on Netflix. It's called 365 Days. Do you know it?
I know it, but it's still on my watch list. I haven't watched it.
Okay. So that's 3 movies, and I just finished the 3rd one. So we're not going to talk about that, but there's a scene in it where she's having lunch with her father, and she goes, "Oh, I love eating out with you, Dad." And he's like, "Oh, why?" And he goes, "Because I can eat as much as I want. It's not the same when I'm with my mom." It's like such a random scene, actually. I'm not sure how it ties in with the rest of the movie at all, but it's this weird scene where she's just like mentioning that it's not okay for her to eat as much as she actually wants in front of people, and that's a thing for women. And he's all like, "Really? I didn't know that one." She's like, "Yeah, never. 2 things to never say to a woman is talk about how much they're eating or their weight." It didn't add anything to the storyline, but it was so interesting that they added that in there. And it's just this reminder that shit's everywhere. Like, what people think of you is something that we are being trained and conditioned to care about. And it's very hard to combat it, especially on your own. And the more that we focus on it, right? Like, the more that we question it every single day, we go out and we eat as much as we want in spite of how others will think, or as much as we take action in the face of fear of what others will think. Only when we do that with like a couple seconds of courage can we start to realize, like, oh, I didn't die. This is actually okay. That's actually a bullshit story that's being sold to me every direction that I look at. And you just reminded me of that.
That's nice. I mean, it's a nice story.
Well, it's just an important realization. I feel like for you, that's like a big thing that you went through, because it's really hard to like to face the possibility that maybe you won't be perceived in the exact way that you want to, but the reality is you never were. Whatever you thought people thought of you, that you thought you were controlling, none of that's true, because everyone else perceives you in a certain way based on the context of their life, how they grew up, what messages they received. That is what determines if they think you're a nice person or an approachable person or a kind person or a smart person. Like, people in America think that I'm smart only because I have an Australian accent. True story. Or like, Americans will often think that UK accents or whatever it is, like, makes them smarter. What?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you just can't control that shit.
But that's very American. That doesn't happen here a lot.
Well, that's because you're all from there. Like you're all living over there together in the same clump of land.
Yeah. What I just thought of when you said this, I think it's interesting how different the backgrounds are when you look at the girls in the society. Because like you just said, a lot of girls get that ingrained from their moms. They have to watch their shape. They have to eat a certain amount or certain things, or they have to behave or dress, or they cannot walk out of the door without makeup on or their hair made up. And I message with a lot of girls in the society, apart from the community calls, and it's really interesting how everything leads up to HA for them and their behavior or orthorexia, whatever. And it's so interesting to, like, when I go back, I have no idea how I got there, because my mom and my dad, they never, also my sisters, they never made a big deal about food. Food was never an issue. We just had whatever was there. Nobody cared if it was like half a portion or 5. That was never an issue. And body shapes were never discussed in the family. So it's interesting that we tend to think that you have to come from a screwed up family, or your family has this screwed up beliefs of how girls need to be in society.
Yeah.
But it's not always. It can always be, I think for me it was ballet to some extent. Because also in my circle of friends, like none of my friends work out. None of my friends are orthorexic. None of my friends, like all of my friends, said I'm crazy for going for a run at 5:30 in the morning or going to the gym. All of them. So it's so interesting how we ourselves can get us into situations just with our brain power. And that's exactly what gave me the power, the willpower to go into recovery, because I knew if I can get myself into this without help of anyone else, I can also get myself out of there.
Oh, I love that quote. I like that a lot.
I just came up with this.
Yeah. By Elisabeth Wendt. Yeah, because that's very true. And I have a similar story as well, where I didn't have any kind of like messed up. Food was in abundance, and I raced my dad to get seconds because I wanted to eat it, you know, whereas like a lot of people would feel like, no, I've been around people where they've served the men more food. And I know that my mother grew up in a home of 6 kids where the men got their plate first and then the women got theirs after. Like it's just super weird. None of that was a thing. And for me, it was really just like marketing, models, magazines, fashion, that being constantly thrown in front of me as like, this is what this item of clothing should look like on a person, and then putting it on and being like, well, I don't look like that, really got to me over a long period of time. And that has nothing to do with my parents. You know?
Yeah. And you know what's even more frustrating? When you lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds or whatever, and you still don't look great in that stuff.
Yeah, you still like...
you still look like shit. I mean, seriously.
Then you walk into the shop, or you're looking at the clothing on the mannequin, you're like, it didn't look like that on me. And then you walk inside and you see in the back that they actually just bulldog clipped the outfit onto the back, and it doesn't even sit that way on anyone. It's a mannequin. And they do that on models as well. I did an apprenticeship as a assistant to a photographer for a magazine called Marie Claire in Australia. I don't know if they have it anywhere else.
No, we have it here.
Oh, there you go. So I did that. And so they have like the fashion editorials, and I was assisting, and they have people coming in doing they bulldog clip to the back of her thing, so of her blazer, so that like the blazer came in more at her waist, and that, so if someone goes and buys that jacket, it will not look like that.
Exactly.
It's false advertising, and they're doing all kinds of things like that constantly. and it's very eye-opening, and we're all affected by it. Okay, we digress. So you started like working through all of those things, making moves, taking action, but no period yet. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so there were a lot of changes, positive changes. Like I said before, the joy of living, and then the freedom around going on trips, for example, because I used to pack tons of snacks whenever we went somewhere. Or the most important thing about choosing hotels were the gym opening hours or their restaurant menu. So that was all out of the way. Yeah, anything, being around friends, that everything just became easier. But at a certain point, I became frustrated when nothing happened. Well, there were some signs that I was approaching closer to a cycle. My body temperature increased a lot, and then my heart rate became quicker. My digestion got better. My food intolerances were not as severe anymore, so I could tolerate a lot more foods. And I could notice a pattern because I tracked my cycle, even though I didn't have a real cycle, but I just wanted to know what was going on. I started taking my temperature every day, tracking cervical mucus, and I realized, okay, there's certainly something going on. And then it came to the point where I thought, okay, I'm getting older. My husband's getting older. If we want to start a family, then I have to do something. And then he actually came home with a telephone number of a gynecologist who is also a fertility specialist. And he said, you know what, just call this guy. Yeah, I did call this guy. And then we just had our first appointment. And he said, you know what, let's just not wait any longer. Because in Austria, you get financial aid under the age of 40 when you want to do IVF. So that's when we decided to start. And before you do IVF, you have to try naturally, and you have to prove that you tried naturally or with just the aid of Clomid. And then when that doesn't work, then they do IVF and then they pay for it. So I did 2 rounds of Clomid with ovulation trigger shots, and nothing happened. And then we took a month off because of traveling, and my husband was gone. And all of a sudden, I noticed egg white cervical mucus, and I'm like, this is interesting.
The magical vacation / patience / when you start doing treatment, you kind of like relax a little bit for some reason.
Yeah, you just don't. Also, when you think it's all regulated by some kind of medication, you stress about it less. And I think that was one major point, not stressing about it, not waking up every morning, waiting what the temperature shows. Did the temperature go up? Wiping, every time you wipe yourself, you feel like, okay, there needs to be something. And anxiety and hope, and it's so annoying. And then when you do something to distract yourself from this, I think my body realized that I was letting go of this control, which is still something that I need to learn.
This is the hardest part about it for everyone almost. And it's the hardest part about like the work that we do, because we need to all be looking at it and concentrating on it. But also, how can we get you to not really do that at the same time? Like, how can we get you to like track the data, but then forget about it and go on with your day? And how can we get more people to not just, relax on vacation, but learn to do that a bit better day to day? Like, how can we bring vacation vibes into our regular life? And it's very difficult to balance the both.
Exactly.
But then it just appeared.
It appeared. And I had my first recovery period.
And I was so confused too, because like we were going sort of back and forth with like, okay, now I'm doing this Clomid, and now like there was lots of things you had to do and like boxes you had to check at this point. So it was hard to keep up with where you were at and what you were doing. And so I was like, wait, so this period is natural.
Yeah. Also, my doctor had me come in because I told him what was going on. And he had me come in for an ultrasound. And he said, well, that's what I forgot to mention before. He said, well, there's something growing. So it was a follicle, not something else.
Yeah. We're probably confusing people. Yes. So you saw your ovaries had a follicle that looked almost to the appropriate size for ovulation.
Exactly.
And it just bloody happened. And this is not a unique story, people, you know, in that sense that like you can be checking the boxes, but if you're not doing that sort of kind of like giving yourself a break and doing that mindset work and finding a way to put it almost in the hands of someone else, right? Like you're able to put it in the hands of medicine and say, I'm stepping back. Not everyone can do that exact thing. Not everyone's going into the hands of medicine, but like, can you find a way to step back, but keep working on this?
Yeah, it's very hard to, especially, I mean, girls in this situation, they always, most of the time, love to be in control and be in charge and know what's going on and know their temperature every day and know everything.
And want to control how it's looking, right? Yeah.
And that's exactly the thing that we need to learn to stop doing. Because this is, I mean, clearly for me, it was the stress that was holding me back from ovulating. And I mean, you can tell a person to stress less, but it's so hard. I mean, how do you stress less? Yeah, just relax, you know. And the more you relax, did you tell a person to relax, the more they get tense and frustrated and angry, because it has to happen, you know. It's just, I don't understand why it doesn't happen for me. And this is stress on your brain, which is stress on your body, which is stress on your ovaries. And
Yep. It's almost like the lesson here is, gosh, I don't know, what do you think the lesson has been?
The lesson has been, and I think it is for a lot of us, to just, and I mean, it sounds so odd, and I didn't understand why everyone said it, but once I did it, I knew what everyone was talking about, but it's just trust your body and let go of the control. Because even if we do all the things, we take all the supplements and we sit instead of walk, and we drive to work, we take the elevator instead of the stairs, we eat full fat instead of low fat, and still nothing's going on. And then there's still something we are holding on to, because we control every single aspect that goes into recovery. Because we did the other thing 100%. We worked out 100%. We dieted 100%. We controlled everything 100%. And now we do recovery 100%.
Yeah.
But doing 100% often keeps us from getting where we want to go. So maybe just do 80% and put those 20% in your trust your body. And
like, what an amazing skill to be able to sort of show up, check the boxes that you know you need to do, and then detach.
It's super hard. And yeah, you and Ashley always said, trust your body. You need to trust your body. And I was like, what are they talking about? I do trust my body, but no, I didn't.
Well, we think we're trusting it, but we're not, right? Because we're always still trying to control it and trying to make it comply. Like this was a very condensed version of your story. Like, let's be real, because we could go down the rabbit hole of being like, I thought that I was not working out and that I was only doing yoga. But then on second thought, remember when you realized like you were still doing pretty intense yoga? It's like you were still trying to control something.
Yeah.
And it's our sneaky behaviors. I don't care if you have an eating disorder, if you don't, like you have some kinds of behaviors that are sneaky and that keep trying to control things. And so that's happening. And we're over here worrying about like, why this is not going to work for me. I'm unique. I'm special. But like, we're really still holding on to some of these behaviors because we're trying to control the whole thing. It's like, I will get my period back without having to completely change whatever it is, right? XYZ, not having to gain weight, not having to completely change my routine. Shit, maybe for some of us, we need to change our job. And like, we don't want to face it. But this is not a small thing, right? HA is a reflection of something that's going on in our life. And if you are eating enough and if you are resting enough and it's still not back, we need to look at, what are you holding on to? What are you still trying to control? What are you afraid of? What are you ruminating on? And like you're saying, trust your body. And when you ask, like, what does that mean? It means know that if you stop trying to control it and stop trying to tell it what to do and give it everything that it needs, then it will take the reins.
I also just remembered when you were talking something about comparison, because comparison is really a really big issue in HA.
Yeah.
But I have an example where comparison actually made me realize what you said before, that I was still doing too much. Because first, when I did my daily workouts, when I was in my deepest HA, I did 3 to 4 workouts a day. So I would start with cardio in the morning, then yoga before lunch, and then a brisk walk in the afternoon. And at night, I would always do abs or glutes workout. God forbid anything came in between my schedule. And then I started comparing myself to, it wasn't intentional, but friends of mine would say, why do you do so much? How can you keep up with this routine every day? Well, I wouldn't be able to do this. But at the same time, they were like, oh, I wish I had your dedication. I wish I had your willpower to do this, because I should work out more. So that's what also encourages you to keep doing this. And then once I dialed back my workouts and I was only doing yoga 6 days a week and one strength workout once a week, which I justified because I had to do it because of my bone issues. I don't want to get weak bones, so that's why I have to do one strength workout a week.
Okay.
So I was doing only morning yoga, and then I spoke to a friend at work, or a colleague at work, and she said, why are you here so early? I said, well, I get up very early every day and I do yoga every morning. And she said, you do yoga every morning? I have to drag myself to one weekly yoga class and you do this every morning? Are you crazy? And then I was like, I thought I was lazy for only doing yoga one day, once a day. Like,
Perspective, huh?
Yeah. And then what was the biggest eye-opener for me was when we had this live class in the HA Society, this live yoga class.
Yeah, with Ashley, or was it? Yeah, I think so.
I don't remember the name, but there were only a few people. And then we did, I think it was half an hour yoga flow. And then I was like, okay, so this is restorative yoga, not what I do every morning.
Yeah, her name was Ashley Tully.
Yeah.
And I actually just put that up on the YouTube channel, the recording of that I was just like, you know what, everyone can have this.
Yeah.
So cool. That was helpful for you. Wait, so why was that helpful?
Because that's what made me realize that I'm still doing too much, although I thought I'm not doing anything anymore.
Yeah.
And
I remember, because you and I were talking a lot during that time. And so I remember being shocked to find out about your realization.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? You've been doing jumping jacks?
Yeah. So I do yoga. I'm not saying it. I'm not going to do any advertising, but there's this guy that does yoga classes, and it looks so easy, and it was so easy, but it always depends where you come from. When you come from 4 workouts a day,
And what's your
power
intention?
yoga class is nothing.
Yeah.
But then I once did it with my sister and my cousin, and they were like dying next to me. And I'm like, what's wrong with them? It's just yoga.
That's an important thing too, right? Like your version, HAers, you listening, your version of not a big workout or an easy workout is very different to the average person.
Yeah. And that's why I said comparison is good in a way when you do it with the right person and not the wrong person. So compare yourself to a healthy person who has a healthy relationship with food, who has a regular menstrual cycle. And even then it's dangerous because you never know what genetics are behind that person. But that's, if you need to compare yourself to somebody, compare yourself with a person like this and not an Instagram avatar or something.
Yeah. Yes. So true. Like we'll all compare, but I think it's also super important to just make sure you're not picking and choosing what you're comparing, right? It's like, I wish to compare myself to this person's workout routine and what they eat, but I do not wish to compare myself to, the fact that that they also get like 10 hours of sleep a night. They don't have any kids. They only work part-time, like the things that clearly make it show that they have less stress on their plate, right, than you have. But you only want to compare yourself to like why you're similar, and so that's why you don't have HA, like you shouldn't have HA, or you shouldn't have to rest more or whatever, because like she's not. Comparison is very sneaky, and that voice in your head that we were talking about before is trying to get you only to look at what it wants you to see. Oh, so good. Okay, and now where are you today?
I'm at the end of my first trimester. And I can't wait for the nausea phase to be over.
Yeah. Break it pregnant. The whole point for you, that's not true. You wanted to recover. You wanted your health back. But like the pinnacle, right? This was such a huge goal. A year ago, you probably were worried it wasn't ever going to happen. And here it is. Because you persevered through all of the shit. Yeah. So much shit. So uphill. All the comparison, all of the letdown, all of the hoping and the waiting and the fear, and all of the wins as well, which help keep you going. But I think that you were you're such an exceptional example of someone who persevered and just like knew that it could happen, like knew that it was worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. It's especially hard, and I want to say this to everyone who takes longer to recover, because it's so frustrating when people come in and out of a group getting their periods after. I only went all in for 6 weeks and it happened all of a sudden, and then 2 weeks later or a month later they even fall pregnant, and then you're still sitting there getting bigger and bigger, getting lazier and lazier, and still nothing's happening. And then, but those things keep coming. I don't know how long. It's gonna be, I don't know, 1.5 years that I joined the society.
Something like that, something solid.
And I cannot tell you how many people got their period back while I was sitting there waiting. And at the beginning it was frustrating, but then you say, okay, it's gonna happen for me too. So you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and then you realize, okay, after a while you know what's going on, and then you can even help other people. And I remember so many times after our community calls that girls would send me messages, or sometimes even after they listened to the recordings, they sent me messages that what I said was so motivating, and they really appreciate what I said, and they can relate to what I said, and that made me really happy. There was another reason why I love this community, because yeah, what we say there matters to people.
Totally. Doesn't it feel good to just like have that validation?
Yeah.
And that's the magic or the joy of just sharing and just being vulnerable and being open, right? Like,
Yeah,
you never helped anyone with your six-pack,
exactly.
but you help people every single time you share something that's hard for you, or you share a piece of advice because someone's going through something that you've been through.
Yeah.
That is so liberating. And that also, like, it feeds itself too. I think that's one of the values of community as well. You go through it on your own, you're in a bubble, but you go through it with someone, and then you're giving advice. And like, when you give someone advice, you're kind of giving that to yourself as well.
Yeah.
And you want, like, everyone's doing this with you. And so you're just like, well, I guess I'll just keep going. And it's just like a self-feeding ecosystem.
Yeah. It's really amazing when you decide to open up about something where you're first not sure if this is something I want to be open about and I want to share. And then you start talking about something and you see eyes getting bigger. And then all of a sudden, when you get it out, you have like 10 heads nodding. And, like silently applauding. And then like, oh yeah. And I'm like, I'm not alone in there. So yeah, it's really rewarding.
Yeah. Well, it's been a very big honor to be along for the ride of your journey and seeing all the progress. And definitely when we have people where it's like taken a long time, like this recovery is over a year, maybe even longer. It's the most fulfilling thing in the world for us to watch as well. So thank you.
Thank you for your help. You've really been great, and you still are. And yeah, I don't know where I would be without you guys.
Yeah. And now Elisabeth like researches stuff for us because she's so good at it. So blog posts and YouTube videos and stuff coming out. I've often got the touch of Elisabeth to help us fact check our stuff, which we are so appreciative. So having you in our life is just a benefit all around. Yeah. Do you want people to be able to reach out to you if they?
Yeah, sure. My Instagram is public, and it's Lisi LISI.WENDT, Lisi Wendt. Okay. Yeah, and just find me,
come hang out,
contact me if you want to, or in the society if you're a member.
Yeah, even better. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your story. Well deserved. Congratulations on your little baby. Do you know the gender yet?
No, I'll know in 3 weeks.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, great. Everyone have a fantastic day. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Tired of long waits and rushed care at the ER and urgent care clinic? Next time, stay home and let Dispatch Health bring the power of the hospital to you.
I call Dispatch Health. A care team of medical professionals actually come to your house.
They're the same caliber of people that you would see if you were at a hospital or an urgent care.
Dispatch Health can treat most non-life-threatening emergencies.
They can do the x-rays, they can do stitches,
urinary tract infections, blood test, urinalysis, ultrasound.
It's almost everything that they can do at the ER.
You never feel rushed. They're there for you and only you.
I felt like their only patient.
And it costs no more than a trip to urgent care because Dispatch Health is covered by most insurance, including Medicare. See if we serve your home at dispatchhealth.com.
Dispatch Health really went above and beyond.
It's wonderful to have care come to your home.
House calls are back, and they're better than ever. Learn more at dispatchhealth.com.
Hi, I've got a prescription for diabetes test strips. How much is the copay?
That could take me a while to calculate. In the meantime, you should think about over-the-counter Contour Next test strips. You get 35 for $19.99, and they're highly accurate. For full details, visit contournext.com/radio.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women